Hello once again, Space Engineers. Tech Coder here with a little bit more testing that we're going to do, and we want to see today how fast ejectors will eject the stone, as well as we want to check the conveyor system. From some of the tests I've been doing, looks like we might have a bit of a problem with that. The conveyors are actually taking up more time. So what I've got here, let me pull over here and we'll be able to see all this stuff at once. I'm going to try to get a good shot. It looks like we can do that well from here. Yeah, it's perfect. Okay, so we go into our inventory and we can see that the large containers both contain exactly the same 42.229.73 and 42.229.73. So they are exactly the same, full of stone. Every bit of it is absolutely full, and we don't have the ejectors turned on. That I'll just double check the ejectors. Those are empty, which is what we expect to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on now of course we're going to see a difference. Be ready for that. When somebody comes in here and says, oh well, yeah, I see the difference, and there's going to be, well, let me tell you a couple of things that are going to happen that I already know are going to happen, is that these containers will not empty exactly the same. Why? Well, because there's such things as in the software, it's called ticks, and it's how many ticks that you get for each action that happens, and it's all controlled by the game and by your processor, by the server and the server's processor and the memory and everything, and it's just not controllable. It's just like being able to go out and fly in the wind in real world. You're not able to control it, and every little adjustment, no matter what you do, you're still liable to have something go different than it was last time. And that's what part of makes Space Engineers interesting, is that it's not always the same every time, and a lot of that is just because of these ticks. And as things happen, they don't quite happen exactly the same every time. So we want to turn on our, I want to have my clock, and I want to turn on these ejectors. I'm going to turn on both ejectors at the same time. They're both set to throw out. They're both set to collect all, and everything that's in there is just stone, so it's off it goes, right? It'll just happen. So I'm going to click this and see how we go with the ejection on it. And some people might say, well, this one's pointed straight up and that one's pointed to the side. Okay, well, I can change that as well if we see some real funky kind of numbers, but I don't think we're going to see anything that drastically different. Actually, I think that this one is, because it's got all these conveyors on it, it may be slower. From some of the testing I've done, there was considerable amount of difference. I got with just a single ejector on another test I did, not on this one. I haven't tested this before, but with a single ejector, I was getting 56 kilos ejected per second. But through conveyors, now I had 8 different ejectors tied on, and I had it through a different type of system and this and that, so I can't say it's exactly the same. That's why I put this test together. And with it, I was getting 79 to 81 kilos, so 80 basically kilos per second to be ejected through a conveyor system. But I had a base connected to that, and I put the stuff in the large container of the base and so on and so forth. So there's potentially some other stuff. So I wanted to get just a clean test. So here we go. Let's get started here with this. We'll turn it on in 3, 2, 1, go, and we should start seeing that stuff coming out. There we are. So the stone is coming out. That's exactly what we wanted. Let's come over here into the containers, and looks like they're staying up with each other. Actually, they're staying up with each other perfectly the same at this moment. So let's see if that stays together. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes the clicks are right, sometimes they're not. So I wouldn't be surprised if these were slightly different. But I'm very happy to see that they are the same. They are slightly different though. We're starting to see, I mean, you can kind of see that this one hits and then that one hits, and so, but they're staying pretty close to the same. Again, within a tick, looks like. So now that one went quite a bit first, and then they caught up, so there you go. Well, I'm not seeing anything substantially different. So I think it must have been in the way that I was connected to the base and everything earlier. That one seems to be as much of a problem. And a lot of people say, you know, do these conveyors slow down stuff and this and that. I've been doing some research. People keep saying that. My test here, of course, that's not like 1,000 different conveyors. And I may want to hook that up just to see. But I'm not seeing that there's any difference. And I'm seeing that these are emptying at about the same rate. Just exactly the same rate as far as I can tell. But what I want to get to is when we empty this, hopefully either, you know, if there's any difference, we'll see it. That's why I put a large amount of stone here, a full large container. And we'll see that come out, and we'll see if there's any serious difference. And then we'll be able to tell how the time is, and we'll check that against the other numbers that I have, and we'll see where this goes, because so far it looks like it's just a tick difference. This one's getting ticked first and that one's getting ticked second, and they're exactly the same. I'm not seeing any real difference. But it's going to take a little while, so I'm going to just fast forward through this, and we'll see where that goes. I'll come back when it gets real close. Okay, we're getting right there to the close end there, and that's it. And that was 7 minutes and 45 seconds in real time. You just got to see it in a few seconds there, but 7 minutes and 45 seconds to empty out that entire thing. And they emptied out exactly the same as you saw there. So that didn't make a difference. So another thing, you know, a lot of people say, oh, they're different because with the what do you call them, conveyors over there. If you got conveyors, you have this problem. Well, oh, I don't want to do that just yet. I got to turn off these ejectors first. And let's turn those off. Okay, now I can fill this up. So let's get back to inventory and just double check again. 42, 229.73. I forgot to write down the kilos. 42, 229.73. So 42, 229.73. Okay, that's what we're going to have in each container. And to empty that with one ejector, that was 7 minutes and 45 seconds. And that happened in both of them. And that with the, so I can do the math on that stuff a little bit later. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just to make sure that we're really, really right here. From these conveyors, do they really hurt or do they not? I didn't see it that time. So what I need to do is come over here and get the small conveyors. And I'm just going to come out from here, and I'm going to come out just run a bunch of them. Do 50 of them. I come up 2. So they don't tie onto each other. And I don't know how many this is going to be in total, but I'm going to just, it's going to be 50 plus a couple here and there, and so I'll come back this way. And come down this way. Come on. There, I got a little lag. And that helps change your ticks, that's for sure. Okay, so we come out here. Another 50. Well, that ought to be enough. No, we want to keep that one though. I'm going to take this one out. Alright, just double check that we got a line going out there and coming back, and going back here, and coming up, and going out, and coming back. Okay, so that's a lot. It's a couple of hundred anyway, because there's 50 times 4 plus a few, so 200 and something. Several, let's put it that way. And let's come over here. We've turned off the ejector. We need to make sure we fill up this tank. And we'll come back. And we've got those set at exactly the same height, so we can watch them in exactly the same way. But this time we've got obviously a lot more. Now let me get just a little closer and see if I can come over this way. Just not exactly the same angle, but we can see. All right, so here we go, and let's reset our timer, and we will double check our inventory. Okay, we got 42, 229.73, 42, 229.73. That's perfect in those containers. And let's turn on our ejectors. And watch our inventory. This time the ticks are not as noticeable even. That doesn't mean anything except that they're just ever so slightly different. Earlier and I'm not seeing the difference in the ticks at all this time. I mean, it's just hard to see that there's anything different, which at first glance tells me that, you know, having a whole bunch of connectors doesn't really make that much of a difference. And, you know, I've heard about connectors being in touching and getting multiple layers and this and that, and I may just go ahead and test that too here in just a moment. Go ahead and fill in all those blocks and just put in, you know, 1,000 or more of those blocks, and then we can watch to see if there's any difference. But I'm not seeing any difference here at all. I mean, I could sit here for 8 minutes and watch it, but I'm not convinced that there's anything different, and I would certainly say that there's nothing substantial. So I think what I'll do is, I don't want to sit here and watch all that happen. There just doesn't seem to be any reason. Let's go ahead and stop that, and I'll refill this just to make sure that it's full. I like to make sure they're full every time. And then I'm just going to put in to where you can get a bunch of different pathways. You know, that's what there's some people say, oh, you get too many pathways and this and that. Okay, well, let's see how many pathways we can do. And that's a number 3. Oh no, that's a 4. That's these. Okay, so if we fill this in, there's going to be a bunch of pathways. So that added a bunch of different pathways that mic could take. And I've seen other people do some tests with this, and I'm sure that my results are going to be just as conclusive as theirs are, which is that this doesn't really matter. So we're going to come out here and build another wall of these. That's going to add another 459 of them. And let's just confuse the issue a whole lot here and take this one out this way. So now there's multiple paths into that container. Yeah, looks like we're good there. And there's another few hundred blocks. I don't know how many it's going to be, but plenty. And let's make sure that we've got lots of different ways to get here. So let's go back this one and come in with a few hundred of them. There's like 1,000 different ways it could go there. And to confuse the issue a little more, let's go up some that way, and then we'll come back over here. I mean, I'm willing to make any kind of test anybody wants to test, because I like to see that if it works or not. Yeah, come on. God, it's so odd that it's hard to come up with my blocks here. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll come bring it from there and go back down here. Come on now, I want to bring it down some. There it is. Well, I'm just going to have to come up here and now I'm abandoning some of these intentionally because I want to make sure that it's got plenty of ways that's not really right. You know, it's not just a nice straight loop and all that kind of stuff. And then let's come over here and take one of these and go up with it. Come like this, and then kind of come in the middle and bring a funky loop again. Okay, so that ought to be about as confusing as anything that you'd ever really have in real life, wouldn't you think? I would think so. That's pretty crazy kind of a deal. Okay, so let's come here and get in our position again and double check our inventory. And they're both exactly the same. And here we go. I'm going to restart my timer just in case there's something interesting. My bet is we don't have anything. I mean, how many connectors have we got out there? Conveyors in different ways of different stuff being able to happen. You know? Anyway, here we go. 1, 2, 3, start. And watch our inventory. Well, I'd have to say, you know, certainly I could be proven wrong, as they say, but from what I'm seeing, I don't see any difference. It looks exactly the same to me as all the other tests, and I'm not seeing certainly any significant difference. And there's all those different possible ways that it could have gone. You know, it has to. People say that if you have too many conveyors, it changes the timing and this and that. I'm not seeing that. Just not seeing it. Yeah, I don't know how I could change that test at all. I'm going to go over here though and see. We're seeing them be exactly the same and it's running. Let's just kind of force the issue that it can't come it can't come directly. It has to do some of these, because it could just go straight up. Somebody might say that. Okay, I can see that. So I have to leave that one connected, and I can take this many out. So now it has to come from here and go somewhere else. So let's even take this one out. I want to be careful not disconnect it. Okay, so it has to come from somewhere. I mean, again, I could sit here all day and pull stuff out and say, oh, it can't go that way. And in fact, let's just do that. Take this over to over this way a little bit and say that it now it can't do that, then it has to go through some other direction. I mean, that's pretty complex difference, I would think. I would have liked to have run it up through that, to be honest. That's really one of the things I wanted to do. And I just don't see how I can make it any, to know that it's going to be more complex. I'm sorry, I just don't. There seems to be plenty of options for it to go, and it's spitting out at the same rate still. I mean, I could take out a whole bunch of these in the middle, and I don't know. If you come up with a better plan, you let me know, and I'll be glad to come watch your test or put anything together. But I have said all along that conveyors do not make the difference, and I'm not seeing it here. I'm just not. Let's look at our inventory again. See how it's going. And even changing all that stuff didn't change it. They're exactly the same, clicking right where they are. So I just got to say, I don't believe all that hooey about having a bunch of conveyors making a difference in speed or anything. I tried it. Some of my tests, I had it like that, but like I said, there was some other what do they call them? The insinuating circumstances? No, some kind of circumstances that it was in with the base, and I had the base in there, so I had large grid stuff with the small grid stuff, and I think I was causing some other challenges in my tests, so that's why I went to do this nice clean test. And as you can see, exactly the same, have been for 5 minutes here. In all those other tests, they were exactly the same. So I think that's pretty conclusive, and I've got enough data that I can tell you that these ejectors will eject approximately, again, this is because it's all the ticks and the things like that. I'm going to be comfortable at, say, 60 kilos of stone per minute, so 1 per second, 1 kilo per second. And your drills were picking up in a minute and 15 seconds. They were picking up the full stuff. That was a previous test I made. So from that, you can see that you need about, and again, it all depends on the ticks, but I'm going to say comfortably, if you have 4 ejectors per drill, you should be in pretty good shape that they can keep up. If you've got 3, it's still pretty good shape. Less than that, if you have 2 per drill, you'll never keep up. You'll have to pause the ship, and that's why I think 4 per drill is the number that I would recommend. And with that, I'm going to say, if you've liked this video, click the button. If you've got a comment, please tell me down at the bottom. Like, don't like, talk to me. Tell me what's going on. If you need some other information, like to see a different test, drop it in the comments. If you subscribe and then ring that bell, you're going to get to see these other videos and other tests that we do, and I test scripts. I'm testing things to get numbers for some other projects, the scripts that I want to write, different things like that. So look forward to seeing you on the next video, and till then, have a fun time with Space Engineers.